So that was the news from that interview. Thank you guys so much on Facebook Live. Attorney General Leevin Camacho joins us here in the KUAM News Link Zoom room. Good morning, AG.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Jason.
I know it's not on the list, but we did report on it last night that I saw your wife had picked up a packet for a re-election packet, and I know I'd asked you about it in the last interview, and you got kind of iffy about talking about it. So, is there anything you can say about that at all?
Hold on, Chris. I'm having a hard time, so I'm gonna put on my headphones.
Yeah. Okay. Oh. All right.
You know, every time I wear this in meetings, they say it looks like I'm a DJ at a club or something, and I wish I was that cool. I'm listening to Kenny G. I just heard you say something about my wife being my life manager. And that's, I can confirm that she is. And what was the second part, Chris? I'm sorry.
Just that she had picked up the re-election packet for you, and I was asking, did you have any comment on that before we get into all the official business?
Yeah, you know, and we're about to talk about some of the great work my office is engaged in, and I'm grateful every day to be part of this team, and I'm hoping to serve as Attorney General for 4 more years. So I can confirm I'm going to be running for re-election.
Okay. AG, I guess we did have a list of topics, but was there stuff that you wanted to talk about before we get into that?
You know, Chris, I'm really having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if it's on my end or what.
I said that I know we sent a list of topics over to you, but was there stuff that you wanted to cover before we get into that?
Well, you know, I guess I would start by something that hasn't really been touched on too much yet, which is this settlement that we were able to secure, a payment for taxes in the Verona sale. You guys are familiar with the Verona Hotel, and one of the things, so we have secured with Leevin Tax, Daphne Shimizu and her team, a $1.6 million payment. And I believe that's actually cash that's in the bank that will be transferred over to the government of Guam for outstanding BPT, real property taxes, as well as income taxes. And this is something that was started back in 2019. And we came out with a press release saying we're going to prioritize tax collection efforts. For the first time, we set up a system with Director Shimizu and her team. And I want to give a shout out to Carolyn Rivera and Jean Flores for kind of walking this through. But this is back in 2019. We filed our first set of injunctions based on failure to pay BPT, and we were able to obtain some judgments. And after that, 2020, the owner, or there's a bankruptcy proceeding that gets started, and our office and DRT are engaged. We are hoping to get paid, and there was an auction, a judicial auction last month, and the payment just came through, I believe, over the weekend. So we're looking at, and just in that one case alone, bringing in about $1.6 million for the government of Guam as a result of these collection efforts. So that's just one case. We have a bunch of others. You know, not everyone's going to be a $1.6 million this but you know, this is. I just want to. Sometimes some things are easier to change, and others, these new initiatives, take a little bit more time. And this is one of those situations where there was a commitment made. You know, we very early on we met with Governor Leon Guerrero, Lieutenant Governor Tenorio, and they talked about wanting to prioritize this. So we put a pause on these collection efforts for the last 2 years because of COVID, basically only filing things that needed to be filed to prevent statute of limitations from running. So, you know, we want to be sensitive to the economic environment that we're in. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of what's going on, and that's a pretty significant payout. I don't believe we've ever secured that large of a payout upfront in cash from a sale ever.
Mm-hmm. So where is this money going to go? Or what's it going to be used
I'm
for?
sorry, Sabrina, sorry. I don't know why I'm having real issues
You
with my
mentioned
audio today.
you guys got the money in the bank. So what's it going to be used for?
So this is actually outstanding, again, income tax, BPT, real property tax.
Right.
And this will be used to satisfy those arrears, essentially, of outstanding tax bills.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this property, Verona is what we're talking about, guys. It's been in the news a lot over the last few years. I think because of stories that I had done about just dumps that they had there. The Guam EPA had, I mean, they'd got a bunch of citations. So what, do you know the current status of that property, AG, or no?
So the sale, again, went through last week, and there's going to be a new owner. And I guess they're going to take over and do whatever they plan on doing with it.
All right. Anything else?
Well, I mean, we can go into your questions, Chris. I'm sure we're going to cover a lot of stuff too.
I guess,
Yeah.
could we start with the autopsies? I know that a GPD had deferred us to your office for comment on the autopsies of
Michael Castro and Adam Messier. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a while back, but we never got any kind of update
Well,
on.
this is where I think there's I don't want to say disconnect, but you know, our burden of proof in the criminal proceeding and an investigation, we can use circumstantial evidence to establish identity. But when you ask a doctor to identify, they will use a different standard. They're not going based on, you know, the victim was last seen wearing these clothes. We received information from someone who was involved in something saying that if we look here, this is where we're going to find remains. A medical doctor is not going to use that to conclusively or positively ID a victim. So in certain situations, for a medical identification, they're going to have to rely on things such as DNA, dental records, other things. For our prosecution and for GPD, I'm sure if you were to get Chief Ignacio on, he can tell you and lay out factually why we believe, you know, we can prove presumptively that these are the victims, and we've charged out those cases, and those are proceeding. So our doctor has not medically identified the victims. He has completed the autopsy and has come to a conclusion and cause of death, but he has not kind of said there's not enough at this point, but that continues to move forward. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit, because it's like, oh, the doctor has an idea, and they're using a different standard than we would use to prosecute a case and to eventually prove in court.
So were the findings of the autopsy consistent with kind of what you guys have been able to glean from the investigation and everything else?
You know, Chris, I have to review and just see what's out there. I know that those cases are active, and it's a little bit tougher for us to talk about active investigations. But I'll see what's been put out at this point and get back to you.
So what is the status of hiring a medical examiner?
Yeah. So the last time I was on, I mentioned that we had been authorized to make an offer to Dr. Sue, and at that point, the offer was a total package of over $400,000 with a base salary of $310,000. And to put things in perspective, the entire budget for the CME office is $430,000. So this is where, you know, we're really going to need the support of the legislature to come in and to properly fund that office. So we'll be providing an update at a publicly noticed meeting on Thursday on the recruitment efforts and where things are at. But there was authorization, we've made the offer, and we'll be providing an update in about 2 days.
What would the funding source be? I mean, are you able to use any like ARP or anything like that, or would it just come out of the general fund?
Yeah. So the offer was made based on the current budget. So right now we are, as you know, when I started, we didn't have a forensic pathologist at all. And we had Dr. Donovan flying in. So we've since entered into this MOU with GMH, where they are regularly performing non-forensic autopsies. We have a contract with 3 forensic pathologists who fly in to perform those autopsies. And we certify funds for all of those autopsies. And if we're underutilizing those funds, we can use it to pay salaries and benefits and make an offer. So that's where the funding source. We also have partnered with General Manabusan out of the NMI, and they have agreed to pay $50,000 towards the salaries and benefits, with the understanding that our forensic pathologists will perform forensic autopsies for both the NMI as well as Guam.
Okay, so the meeting is Thursday?
I'm sorry?
The meeting is Thursday?
The meeting is Thursday.
Okay.
I will get you the time right now. It is at 10:30 a.m.
Okay. So that's when you're going to announce whether or not he accepted the offer.
That's correct. We'll be providing an update on recruitment at that point.
All right.
Can we get you on some of the recent cases, convictions that your office has had?
I know we're in trial now. You know, Chris, this is another one where I'm very hesitant to talk about criminal cases just based on the nature of these things. And I don't want to, now, as much as I would love to come on, and that's typically how people hear about our office, but I just feel really hesitant to talk about it. I can say that, you know, there's 2 trials going on right now. I believe both are homicide trials. Right. Our prosecution division has been very busy as of late, but other than that, there's not really much that I can say other than providing updates on where things are at procedurally.
Can you tell us about, I know there was that, the quarantine audit from the port, and then I think the last time you were on, you said you were seeking an opinion from the Supreme Court of Guam?
Yeah, so we filed that petition last month, basically to put this issue to bed of whether or not the governor violated Guam law when she procured hotels early on in the pandemic, basically the first time that we had these quarantines of travelers, in particular travelers coming from the Philippines. We filed that in December. We have served a copy on the governor, so she has 60 days to file her response to the lawsuit. We've also provided copies of the complaint to senators who are interested in this issue. So they are, they can participate if they would like. They can make that decision if they want to participate in the Superior Court proceeding. But I believe the response is going to be due in next month in March, based on the 60-day timeline for any government official. It's been assigned to Judge Gutierrez. So we're just tracking, kind of filing the complaint and seeing where things go from there.
Can you provide an update on the situation over in Sasajan, Marbo Cave area? Because I did receive a copy of a letter. It was sent to Senator Rigel, the CCU, the legislature, the Manila mayor, and it says to your office about the continuous destruction of main water line in Sasajan Valley by KEPCO Solar Project. You familiar with this letter? Because I'm hearing that the water was even shut off, possibly even over the weekend.
Yeah. And then you also filed suit, right?
An amended complaint.
Yeah, we filed a leave to. So this is another one of those things where you look back at what we're trying to do as an office. Environmental litigation is one area that we're trying to build out. And this is the Sasajan Valley, hopefully I'm saying that right, is one of these cases that we filed based on everyone saw the photos on the social media. But this is the first time our office is engaged in a cultural resource, natural resource damages type of claim. In addition to, some of the landowners have been denied access to their properties when there's heavy flooding as well. In the second amended complaint that we filed and we are asking for permission to proceed on, we learned that there was actually notice given to the owner of the construction company before the major flooding that there was going to be an issue, and specifically there was already runoff into the roadways. So we've alleged that they knew about it and they did not take adequate steps even at that point to address the issue of the lack of erosion controls and sediment control measures. We also learned that there were cultural resources that were damaged. In particular, there was a cultural deposit, and they basically went in with an excavator and were digging, and they hit some of these layers of cultural deposits. My understanding could be that area was used as a village from 1000 AD to 1700 AD. And we also have information to believe that they found human remains as well in these areas that were disturbed as a result of some of the construction activities. So we've added that to our complaint. I believe we have a hearing coming up in the next few weeks, and trial is currently set for November. So we're on track with that as well. But those are the new allegations that we included. And I saw the Youth Congress, and they're very engaged. It's always good to see young folks that are out there and very I don't want to see, not cynical yet, right? They haven't been invited to the petty party yet. Maybe that takes a few years in politics before you get that far. But it's good to see them engage on these issues.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And speaking of environmental work, so the Audit case also is moving forward. I believe there's a hearing set this week, a status conference. We've been assigned to a new judge, Judge Cobb. Actually, our last judge was elevated to the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, and she's on the short list as a potential nominee to the Supreme Court of the United States as well. So I guess if you work on a case from Guam, that'll put you on the fast track for consideration to sit as a justice at the Supreme Court of the United States. But that hearing is scheduled, I believe, for Thursday Guam time, and they're going to just start setting deadlines for discovery and potentially set the matter for trial.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but could we just go back to the Sasajan, the original landowners, or the landowners in that area? Did you receive that letter regarding the continuous destruction and the issues with the water and the water being shut off by KEPCO, allegedly?
Gosh, again, I can't really hear you too well, Sabrina. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what's going on my end. Technical difficulties.
Did you receive that letter from those landowners at the Sasajan area about the water issues there?
I can just hear a little bit about water in the valley. I know. I guess I'm going to try to guess here. We are still proceeding on the damage to the water resources, both in the cave, and we also were able to obtain a photo that was taken by a neighboring landowner of a large plume of red dirt that was in the ocean. after the major flooding in the third week, right after Liberation Day.
I'm actually referring to the water line.
The water lines.
Yeah, the residents are saying that it's been damaged, right, by KEPCO, and rendering them without water.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll send it to Carlina to send.
If you could, thank you.
Yeah,
Will do.
AG, but so with that whole Marble Cave thing, it seemed like, right off the bat, you had the involvement of all the regulatory agencies, DPW, Guam EPA and stuff. So I was just kind of wondering, your suit, does it just fill in the gaps, or are you seeking anything that hasn't already been kind of remedied by this regulatory action?
We're seeking punitive damages, Chris. And really, it's just as a message that you get this idea out of people's heads that, I'm going to go in and wreak havoc on the island and then just pay afterwards and ask for forgiveness. I think this is an example where we believe that it was deliberate, that they did not build the ponding basins as they had agreed to do under their plans. And that's, we're going to be able to prove up the damages to the cultural resources and to the natural resources and our water resources. But we're looking at sending a message here that if you're a contractor and you're coming to Guam and you're engaging in construction projects, you got to follow what you've committed to and not just think, you're going to pay a fine after the fact and walk away scot-free.
Is there like a range of the damages monetarily that you're looking at?
Yeah, it's a multiplier basically based on what we're able to establish as the actual damages. And then it depends on how egregious the conduct is. You kind of get elevated from anywhere 3 times to 10 times. And we have requested a jury trial. So we want to be able to explain to, our peers, like, this is what happened. And when you have a project this large, and again, that's our allegations, a project this large, a construction company this big, it's not accidental that, one of the things we've alleged is that they actually built a building where they should have built a ponding basin. And I don't know how you accidentally build your office space where on the plans you've provided to DPW, you were supposed to have built an area for the runoff and the water to flow into and to not run off down towards the cave and to the shoreline.
Yeah, that still blows my mind.
I wish someone would accidentally build me a house somewhere. Just on accident.
Yeah, I'm not a construction management guy, but I can look at a map and see, this should be a ponding basin, not an office.
Right.
And figure that out. And some of the things that we're seeing, it's come out. They signed an archaeological monitoring plan as well, but they were supposed to have monitors out there whenever they're engaging in earthwork and excavation, which is why we've alleged that when they were out there digging, they didn't have the proper people on site, and they ended up, for me, it looks like, just a band of red dirt, right? But if you had an archaeologist on site, they would be able to identify that this is actually significant. This is cultural deposit. There's pottery shards here. There's other things that we can use. We need to come in and preserve and inventory some of these items and then go from there. So that's, Chris, it's just one of those things, again, where you come in, it's like, okay, thank you. Are we good now? We're going to go about our business. And we just need to knock that off and just be prepared to move forward. We have a good team that's on it. One of the other things that's unique under our cultural resource statute, we're entitled to attorney's fees if we prevail. So we have our team. We've never done this before, but we're learning quick. And, it's something we have a lot of resources from other AG's offices. This is an issue that we're hoping to beef up on. We actually are going to be hosting or sponsoring a training in March for regulatory environmental agencies on what we need to be looking at for both private individuals as well as the federal government, because sometimes our disputes are between, like the ORDOT case, it's our office at odds with potentially DOD. With the receivership case, our office is kind of in an adverse position to US EPA. So we just want to make sure our staff and all the staff that are here for our local agencies are equipped when it's time to kind of go up against the feds. And private parties as well. But that's something that we are going to build out our capacity here at the office.
Was there an update on the review of the port audit? Were you looking at that? I thought I saw a release.
Yeah, I'm not looking, just to avoid any issues. I'm not involved in anything involving these prior port employees. I represented an employee at something. I don't know if it's connected at all to the audit. Or if it's a client, but just we're erring on the side of caution that I'm not going to be engaged just to avoid anything, any kind of speculation that I was persuading our office to take a position one way or the other. So we've referred that to our chief deputy to review and to handle that matter for the office.
What about the Gora? Was there an issue with the retroactive pay for Gora?
Yeah, I mean, that's an example of when it works right. You know, we had a question raised by the OPA on whether or not Gura could retroactively or make a raise retroactive to anniversary date. And we issued an opinion saying, no, you can't. There's, you know, classified employees in the government of Guam have a statute that allows for you to refer back to your anniversary date, but there's no similar statute for unclassified employees. So it doesn't matter what your rules and regs say, the statute that prohibits retroactive pay will trump that. So after we issued our opinion, we received word from Gura that they made the decision to not, you know, proceed to amend the personnel actions and to only make those raises paid prospectively. So it's not juicy for television, but we got it right. And that's an example where OPA, our office, and the agency are kind of working together to stay on the right side of the law in these situations.
I was wondering if you had any comments on the upcoming completion and opening of the DNA lab over at GCC. You know, we used to have the chief of police when he was allowed to come on live on the show to talk about, you know, the progress and accomplishments over at GPD. But as everyone knows, they're not allowed to come on anymore. But do you have any comment regarding the opening of the DNA lab? I think it's opening this month, I think.
Wow.
You know, anything that gives tools to law enforcement folks, you know, we're gonna support. Chief and his guys are doing a great job over there, and we're working with them to build out our capacity to work better with our law enforcement folks. I know that he was very happy with the raise that our office was affected by that 18% law enforcement raise, and those guys need to get paid properly. So hopefully that will stop the poaching of our talented local law enforcement folks to these federal agencies, which I believe has been happening quite a bit. So anything we can do to support Chief, obviously, we're going to be in favor of. That will help, because ultimately that helps us, right? It benefits us and it benefits the island.
AG, so I know one of the things that the chief was talking about with this DNA lab that he had wanted to look into was reopening cold cases, right, where they have evidence, you know, DNA type of evidence that they could, you know, possibly run through whatever they have there at the lab. Are you going to be involved in any type of like commission that reviews cold cases?
You know, it's I can hear you, and then I can't really breathe because you're wearing a mask.
Let me use my announcer voice. Yeah. So anyway, the chief was saying that with the DNA lab, what they wanted to do was kind of look at cold cases where they have evidence of that type and maybe reopen them. So my question was, are you going to be involved in any type of commission or board that reviews these cases and makes a determination as to which ones we can move forward on?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking to Chief about that and his initiative, and we're actually looking at training that we can send some of our prosecutors on, in particular for cold cases or cases where it's not the standard, I don't want to say the standard homicide, but these more just requires a different skill set potentially to prosecute cases. As an example, if you can't find a body, you know, you find something at the scene, you find DNA that lines up with a suspect. How do we prosecute those cases? So we've been talking to Chief. We try to avoid a task force if there's not going to be an output. We'd rather just let the actions speak for themselves. So, you know, Chief goes out, gets DNA, and we work with them to prosecute these cases. You're going to see it when we charge it out, but maybe we will have to have larger discussions with these other agencies to beef up those resources. But we have been in talks, and we're trying to get specialized training on those types of cases just to, again, to beef up our resources here at the office.
Got it.
All right.
Anything in closing, AG?
You know, and again, Chris, this is just the last week or two that we're talking up. I do want to give an update. One of the other initiatives we've had is to try to be more proactive in filing lawsuits and also to bring money for our drug issues, right? And we talked a little bit about the opioid settlement. So there was a major milestone. Last week was the deadline. So we had kind of 3 trigger points. One was states and territories to sign on to these settlement agreements. So we have, I believe, 4. We have the Purdue Pharmaceuticals case that's going forward. We have Johnson & Johnson. We have the 3 large distributors, and we have the McKenzie. So McKenzie's already been paid out. That money's already been, you know, kind of spent locally. Last week, Johnson & Johnson, which is a $5 billion settlement total package, and the 3 distributors, which is a $21 billion settlement. it was a deadline for states, territories, and their local subdivisions to participate. And at that point, there are 44 and 45 states and territories that have signed on. And I believe it's been reported 90% of local governments have agreed to sign on to that framework. So the next milestone is later, it's already February, January, it felt like a year, but later in February, the distributors and Johnson & Johnson will decide whether or not they are going to sign on based on the number of states, territories, and subdivisions that have agreed to it. And if it does proceed, we're looking at getting our first payment out of those settlements as early as June of this year. So there was a law, I think we talked about this opioid trust fund. There's a commission that's going to talk about the most effective way to use these funds. And again, I want to thank Governor Senator Shelton and all the senators who supported that bill. So we're looking at convening that commission within the next few months just to make sure we have a game plan as the money begins to roll in.
Got it. Thank you, AG.
Thanks, AG.
And the last thing, make sure you wish Carlene a happy birthday. She's probably going to get mad at me. But,
Okay.
I don't know how old she is. Out of respect, I won't say how old she is.
Thank you, AG.
Thank you, guys.
All
Okay,
right.
there you go. Yeah, and happy birthday to Carlina Chatfris, the
Oh, happy birthday.
yeah,
Happy birthday.
spokesperson of for the Office of the Attorney General. That's off Attorney General Leevin Camacho. We're taking a quick break, and we're coming back with your news here. Your 8 o'clock news at 9 o'clock. Proudly brought to you by Pacific Points. And that's on the way right here on the link. We're brought to you by, again, Pacific Points, Cabo Enterprises, IT&E, and Jack in the Box. Good morning.
We know you're tired of hearing about COVID-19. Some of you are